In the last class, we looked at happiness as if it was an end in itself. And indeed, happiness and feeling good is its own purpose. But it is actually also much more than that. Because, as we will see, happiness is an ingredient to success. It's an ingredient to a longer life and to a strong immune system. So in this lecture, we will look at how happiness leads to success and not only the other way around. And we will also look at what kinds of positive emotions there are and how we can bring more of them into our lives. Positive emotions are good for us. They let us live longer and achieve more, they build up our immune system, and they help us being more creative. Positive emotions have the power to literally transform our lives. These claims seem very lurid and too good to be true. But let's just together look at how we know about the positive impact of positive emotions. Some researchers go quite far in order to prove that their theories are right. One of those studies went like this. The researchers invited a few hundred men and women into a hotel for a week. The men and women were infected with a cold virus and held in quarantine for the rest of the week. And what the researchers did then, every day, was to collect the tissues the people used in dedicated baskets and weigh the amount of mucus in them. Well, you can say that these psychologists went out of their way to see what happened. The result of the study was that the people who were happier before the study recovered faster than the others. This is quite bulletproof proof for the power of positive emotions and for the effect of positive emotions on our immune system. Probably the most influential and mind-blowing study that's ever been done demonstrating the power of positive emotions involved nuns. It started about 80 years ago in the 1930s. Back then, a number of nuns were asked to write autobiographical sketches about themselves. That was just before they entered into the convent. And then, about 70 years later, psychologists went back to these diary entries and analyzed them. They wanted to find out if what these 20-year-old nuns wrote in their diaries could predict how the rest of their lives turned out. In particular, they were interested in predictors of longevity. First, they looked at how complex the sentences were, an indicator for their intelligence. They also looked at where the nuns lived. And then they looked at how much they expressed their beliefs in God, measuring their devoutness. It turned out that none of these factors had an impact on how long the nuns went on to live. But there was one factor which did have an impact, a very significant impact. The nuns, whose journal entries had more positive content, lived nearly 10 years longer than the nuns whose entries were more negative or neutral. In particular, the researchers went on and compared the most positive 20% with the most negative 20%. And here's the difference. Here you can see how the researchers compared the happiest and the unhappiest group of the nuns. More than 90% of the happiest group of nuns were still alive at the age of 85. And at the age of 94, more than 50%. If you compare them to the unhappiest group, not even 40% were alive at the age of 85, let alone at the age of 94, when not even 10% made it. Clearly, those nuns who were happiest at the age of 20 were not happier because they knew they would live longer. Their superior health and their longer life could only be a result of their happiness and not the cause. So if you're asked, can it be that being happier adds to the years of your life? Then the answer is that it certainly seems so. In addition to improving our health, positive emotions have a significant, very interesting impact on our brain. To understand this, it is helpful to first understand how negative emotions work. The traditional example to understand how negative emotions work is to look at our ancestors in prehistoric times. They felt fear or anger in response to a threat, like a wild animal that was about to attack them. This triggered what we call the fight or flight or freeze response, responsible for our survival at times of danger. In these situations, the brain had only 3 options to choose from. First, they could fight the animal. And secondly, they could try to run away as fast as possible. And the third, which is not here on the slide because it's much less talked about in research and in general, is that they could pretend to be dead. That would be freezing. So in the face of danger, we respond to threats either by gathering our energy for fight or flight, or by freezing in helplessness, collapsing in the face of an overwhelming situation. Speaking scientifically, those negative emotions limit our thought-action repertoire, meaning emotions like fear and anger close our minds and close our hearts. They limit our brain to only a few possible actions. Positive emotions, however, have a different function. Instead of narrowing down the possibilities available to us, they open our brains and our hearts up to new possibilities. This is explained by a very famous theory called broaden and build theory. Positive emotions broaden our mind. They help us be more creative and think outside the box. We become more open to new experiences, and positive emotions also enable us to zoom out of a particular situation and consider and think of alternative solutions. And even more, positive emotions flood our brain with dopamine and serotonin. Those are chemicals that not only make us feel good, but also make our brain function at higher levels. This is the build part of the theory. Positive emotions help us organize new information and remember old information. They enable us to build new connections in our brain. And then, what this does for us in the long run is to transform us for the better. Positive emotions allow us to discover and build new skills, new friendships, and new knowledge. Here on this slide, you can see an overview of how this process works. At the beginning, we feel positive emotions. Then, what these positive emotions do, they broaden our momentary thought and action repertoires. That means they broaden our brain up to new possibilities, new thoughts, new, more creative ideas. And this builds our personal resources. That builds our friendships, that builds our knowledge, and that builds our skills. And then at the end, this leads to transformation. It transforms people and produces an upward spiral. And this process is responsible for the fact that happiness actually leads to success and is not only an outcome of success. Meaning that the way we look at success usually is kind of flawed because it's not being successful in order to be happy. It's much more being happy and then be successful because positive emotions have such a powerful impact on us. Feeling good can take various different forms. Up to now, I was always referring to positive emotions in general. But we can get more specific, and that's why Dr. Barbara Fredrickson came up with this list of 10 positive emotions. The first one here is joy. Joy happens in an instant. It's a perfect moment captured when all is just exactly as it should be. Think of a wonderful holiday morning with the family. Think of an unexpected present that makes you feel good, or seeing the first smile on your infant's face. The second one here on the list is pride. Have you ever done something really well that took time and effort? Maybe you reached a goal you never thought you would be able to reach. If so, then pat yourself on the back and be proud of it. Stand back and take a deep breath and let it in, because you earned it. The third one here on this list is interest. Interest is a state that calls our attention to something new that inspires or fascinates us. Like a shiny new toy or something that captures our imagination, interest is alive and it's invigorating. Interest wakes us up and leaves us wanting more. Love encompasses all of those emotions that you see here and is experienced if we share one of these emotions with another person. When we experience love, our bodies are flooded with feel-good hormones that reduce our stress and even lengthen our life. The next on the list is serenity. It's a mellow, relaxed, and sustained version of joy. Serenity is peacefulness and comes on a cloudless day when you realize there's nothing that you have to do. It's indulging in a favorite luxury and being mindful enough to take it in. The next one is inspiration. Inspiration is felt in a moment that touches our heart and nearly takes our breath away. Ask yourself, what are the things in your life that inspire you? Forgiveness is something that is felt if we accept something that another person has done wrong to us. It is the positive emotion that we feel if we forgive another person. Awe is when you feel overwhelmed by greatness. Awe is triggered when we see the vastness of nature or the cosmos. Take a moment to think of if you had a moment of awe lately. Amusement comes up in these delightful surprises that make us laugh. It's those unexpected moments that interrupt our focus and crack us up. Have you had an amusement in your life recently? Barbara Fredrickson says about hope that unlike other emotions that arise out of our comfort and safety, hope springs out of our dire circumstances. Deep within the core of hope is the belief that things can change, that things can get better, and that possibilities exist. Hope sustains us and motivates us to turn things around. Now that we learn about these 10 positive emotions that exist, we will take a closer look at how we can cultivate more of these positive emotions. I'll go over some simple things that you can start engaging in right away. Some of those might seem like common sense, and it's true, they are common sense. But as Voltaire said, common sense is not that common, and we actually tend to forget what is so obvious to us if we really think about it. If we do this regularly, those actions can have a significant impact on our well-being and on our health. The first one of these is a writing exercise, which is about writing about intense positive experiences. It involves thinking about the most wonderful experiences in your life, the happiest moment, the most ecstatic moments, moments of rapture, perhaps being in love, or from listening to music, or suddenly being hit by a book or a painting, or by a song. Choose one of such experiences and write about it. Try to imagine yourself at that very moment, including all the feelings and emotions that are associated with this experience. And then write about this experience. Write about it in as much detail as possible, trying to include the feelings, thoughts, and emotions that were present at this time. Find more clear instructions in the additional resources. The good thing about this exercise is that it has not only been shown to improve your mood, but even to improve your physical health. This next exercise is as simple as it can get. Go outside and enjoy nature. It seemed almost too simple and too obvious for me to mention it, but it's, again, easy to forget. Go outside in good weather, ideally somewhere in nature. Don't underestimate the immense impact that nature can have on our body and on our mind. Science is just beginning to understand it, and research shows that we have an innate connection to nature. One study, for example, found that when you're in a hospital, you recover faster if you can see greenery from your window. Just the simple fact that you can see nature from your window makes you recover faster. And if you just take a few moments to look at the picture on the slides here, you might find that even just seeing those pictures can have a positive effect on our body and our well-being. An impressive amount of research backs up the effectiveness of this next suggestion I'm having for you. If you dedicate 1 day a month to doing random acts of kindness throughout your day, deliberately and consciously, you will see what kind of effect it can have on your well-being. They need not be grand gestures. Simple things like paying for someone's coffee or smiling at everyone you meet. Do what feels authentic and works for you. Kindness is linked to increased feelings of fulfillment and pleasure, and research has shown that it's also good for our heart and can even slow our aging process. And most importantly, it's a wonderful thing to do because it literally multiplies happiness. It does not only affect you, but everybody you are kind to as well.